أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا ومنيرا. Assalamu alaikum, brothers. Jazakumullah khair for attending the circle. You could be doing a lot of things on a Friday evening. Some of the brothers have probably come from work. Some would like to just rest at home. So the fact that you're here, Allah will record it, the angel will record it as a deed, a good deed, and it will weigh, inshallah, heavily on the day of Qiyamah. Now, the title I've been given is the prophetic model. And actually what the brothers have asked me to discuss is Ramadan has finished for about 17 days into Shawwal. And for those who haven't fasted, there's 6 consecutive days of Shawwal. You still have days to fast those 6. And the Prophet ﷺ said, the one who fasts the month of Ramadan and then he follows it up with 6 days from Shawwal, it will be like he fasts the whole year. So you will get the reward of the whole year. So inshallah, if you haven't done it, you've got time to do it. So one of the things people seek during the month of Ramadan is improvement, is to better themselves, is to gain closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to have their sins forgiven, as the hadith says, and have their ajr increased. This is the month, Ramadan is the month where your good deeds are increased between 10 to whatever Allah wishes to give. And it is the month where all deeds can be erased. All sinful deeds can be erased. All mistakes can be erased. But when we talk about fixing ourselves, what comes to your mind? When people say to you, I wish to fix myself, I wish to improve myself, what happens? What comes to your mind? What do you think?
That's the question.
It's open to anyone. You don't need to put your hands up to say the classroom, yeah? Just blurt out the answers. You want to put your hand up, put your hand up.
So I did bring a salah on time.
Praying the salah.
Not delay.
So not delaying the salah. Anything else? Did not anyone seek improvement in this month? In my Ramadan? Overcoming negative personality traits. Acquiring good characteristics, good adab. Anything else? Did anyone seek to improve the reading of their Quran? Read it more regularly maybe? Attend the masajid? Give sadaqah, etc. You will find people mention these things. Now, why are we talking about this? It's simply because how should this be actually done? Islam actually sets a way where we can improve our character. But before I talk about improving the character, I want to just talk about some of the things that affect our character, that affect our nafs. So one of the things that affect our nafs is the company that we keep. So the Prophet ﷺ in a very famous hadith, this is in Imam Suyuti's collection as well as in Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ says, "Ar-rajulu ala dini khalili, falyanzur ahaduhum man yukhali." So the Prophet ﷺ says, the man, he is on the deen, on the religion of his khalil. Falyanzur, so let him be careful, let him be aware of who he takes as his khalil. Now khalil means like your best friend. So as an example, Ibrahim alayhi salam is called Khalilullah. He's a very close, very intimate friend. This is the friend you spend your time with. You know, like when you ain't got nothing to do or you got some spare time, you call him up and say, what are you doing, man? Let's go out. Let's do this. Let's do that. That is the Khalil. Now, in this, another thing that you find is, what is the relationship between you and your best friend? So if the relationship is one of joke, laughs, just chilling, not doing much, going out all the time maybe, but getting up to no good, then you will follow your best friend in that. If the relationship is one of built on Islam, so he goes to the masjid and he says, come with me. He goes to Umrah and the first person he calls is you. I'm going Umrah this October or November, do you want to join me? He's going somewhere to a talk and he says, maybe ask my mate if he wants to join along. He takes his friend with him. And you see this relationship actually play out in the seerah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his best friend is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu an. Who is the one who doesn't hesitate when he embraces Islam? Abu Bakr. Rasulullah asks him and he says, okay. You have to imagine, it's not like me asking you and I lend £5 of you. Someone's coming to you and saying, I'm the messenger of God. I've been sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have to obey me in all matters. Ya Abu Bakr. You okay with that? And Abu Bakr said, yeah, I believe that. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't think about it at all. Why? Best friends. They grew up together almost. Well, it is narrated that the Prophet ﷺ would go to Abu Bakr's house twice in one day. Once in the morning, once in the evening. That's how close they are. Even my best friend, if I went to his house twice a day, trust me, he'd get fed up of me. Eh? That's how close they were. The point here being is the person you hang around with, the person who's your best friend, the person who you keep company with, his traits will rub off on you. If they are un-Islamic traits, if they are bad traits, they will rub off. And if they are good traits, they will rub off. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentions, and we all know this hadith, this is muttafaqun alayhi, it's in Bukhari and Muslim, where the person, he can hang around either with the musk seller or he can hang around with the blacksmith. If you hang around with the musk seller, the Prophet ﷺ says, maybe you will buy some musk off him. Maybe some of the musk will rub off on you. And if not, if you walk past him, you will at least get the fragrance. You will at least smell some of the nice attar. And the same is for the blacksmith. If you hang around with the blacksmith, what happens? You're going to get soot on your clothes maybe. You might get some dark marks on your clothes. It may be that you burn your clothes in the fire that he's using. If not, when you are passing by him, his smell, his stench will touch you. You will smell that. Well, that's not very pleasant. Now, I work for the underground, yeah? You see this on the underground all the time. When you go into the underground, you don't see the particles, the dust particles. It's all over the place, but you don't see it. But if you go home and wash your hands, it will come off. If you go home and clean out your nose, you will see the soot come out. But when you are present in that environment, you don't notice it. It's very small, but it affects you. When I go home, I wash my hands at least twice because it doesn't wash off the first time. That's how much particles you get. What's the point? The environment affects you. So you have a person you hang around with affects you, and then you have the environment around you. It may be no one. It may be just the way the environment works, the way the society works, affects you. Sometimes to the extent you don't even notice it. Now, why am I mentioning both of those things? We live in a society that unfortunately isn't Islamic, and that's evident for everybody to see. Yeah? We live in a society where promiscuity is at large. Yeah? So a lot of the brothers, you will find that you don't even notice it sometimes anymore because it's just so open. The nudity, the nakedness, the way people dress, the inappropriate way the way people dress. And people are affected by that. Now, normally, what does the hadith tell us? What does the ayah tell us? You lower your gaze. Well, where are you going to lower your gaze to in this society? Start lowering your gaze all day, you're going to end up crashing into something, not getting run over by a car, because it's just so prevalent. So you see that in these types of society. Now, what does the Quran tell us? وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Do not approach zina. So when Rasulullah goes to Medina, you have to imagine, he doesn't tell them, do not commit zina. That's not what the verse says. This is, Habib, don't come close. I.e., don't come close to the actions of zina. Why? Because you may fall into it. If you hang around with a female long enough, you may fall into it. If you are in the company of a woman who's non-mahram to you, you may fall into it. So what? Don't come close to it. So Rasulullah in Medina, what does Rasulullah do? Even to the extent in public, he tells the women to walk on one side of the pavement when they come out of the masjid, and the men to walk on one side of the pavement. He separates the genders. Here, mixing is not just happens, it's encouraged. Anybody that goes to a public school and goes to a state school, especially secondary schools, you will see it is encouraged. They put sometimes boy there, boy there, boy girl. So try and break that up. Another thing that this society lacks, as an example, which in the Rasulullah talks about having, is haya. They say shyness here. It's not shyness, it's demureness. It's more than shyness. To be demure means to have shyness, to have embarrassment, to be humble, to be reserved, to be quiet, to be simple. It has all of these types of qualities. So the famous hadith, there's two narrations. One's in Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ says, إِنَّ مِمَّا أَدْرَكَ النَّاسُ مِنْ كَلَامِ النَّبُوَّةِ الْأُولَى فَإِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحْيِ فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. Indeed, the first words that were given to all prophets. So these are words that all prophets got. So the first part of the hadith shows you its importance. One, we gave it to all prophets. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to all prophets. And two, that these were some of the first words given. So this wasn't like we gave them right at the end. It was given right at the beginning. Was what? إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَغْنِ فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. If you have no shame, do as you like. And the muhaddithun, they explain it in two ways. One is, if you have no shame, you will do as you like. And the other one is, if you feel no shame, okay, then do as you like. So, and we see that in this society as an example. People are shameless and they think it's normal to be like that. It's okay to be like that. They will do things publicly that, shouldn't even be done privately. And I don't want to be too explicit, but we know we live in these types of, in this society. Then you have the teaching of inappropriate relationships in primary and secondary school. And anyone who's a father here who has children going to primary school, you know what I am talking about. Kids are being taught things at ages that should not be taught. I have children. My children go to a primary school here. I have to constantly ask my daughter, what did you learn today? What were they talking about? And she tells me, oh, sometimes this, and sometimes, alhamdulillah, is good, and sometimes you have to then explain to her. Now, my daughter is 8. I'm having to explain discussions to her, concepts to her, that I shouldn't have to explain to an 8-year-old. I shouldn't have to be having this type of discussion with an 8-year-old. It's not natural. It's not normal. They should be at least gain some senses. They should be at least mentally mature. But you are forced into that type of conversation. What else do we have in this society? You have no respect for elders, no respect for women, no respect for the family unit. So as an example, in this society, people don't compete in who should look after their parents. They compete in who shouldn't look after the parent. They fight with each other, not over looking after the parent. Rather, they fight with, we don't want him, you take them. They're too much of a burden. Or, no, I'm not taking them, you take them. And what happens to these elderly parents? Where do they end up? They end up in care homes. Now, care homes, it's a nice, I used to work in a care home. Yeah? It sounds nice. It sounds palatable, care home. It's not a care home, brother. It's a solitary confinement home. That's what it actually is. If you walk into one of these places and spend one day, you will see the nature of it, where elderly people are kept in a room on their own without human contact for hours and hours. Someone comes and they will either feed them for 10 minutes, they will either clean them for 20 minutes, and that's all the human interaction they've had for that day. The rest of it is on TV. In this country, they punish you with solitary confinement in prison. It's unnatural to do that, and that's why elderly people develop mental health problems. The point here being, how should we look after our elderly? How did the Prophet ﷺ tell the companions to look after the elderly? He taught them two things. First thing, in the famous hadith of Jibril, where he comes to the Prophet ﷺ, and Prophet ﷺ is standing on the minbar, and Prophet ﷺ says, Ameen. And the companions are looking at him, why is he talking to himself? And Prophet ﷺ says, Ameen. And they're looking, okay, Ameen. And then Prophet ﷺ finishes and he sits down. And then after a while, the companions asked the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, we saw you do something we don't see you having ever done. Why did you say Ameen like that? And Rasulullah then explains, and he said, Jibreel alayhi salam came to me and he made 3 du'as. Now, I want you to keep in mind who's making the du'a and who's saying Ameen. Jibreel, the angel of Wahi, is making the du'a. And the Prophet, who is most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is saying Ameen. Yeah? So what's the first dua? The first dua is, whoever comes to Ramadan comes to him, and he is not able to have his sins forgiven, may Allah curse him. And Rasul says Ameen. The second dua, which is the one prevalent for us, is whoever finds his parents, one or both of them, in old age, and he cannot attain Jannah through them, he is cursed. Rasulullah says, Ameen. And the third one is, whoever hears your name and does not say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he is cursed. And Rasulullah says, Ameen. Now, look where Rasulullah places the caring of the parents. It's equivalent to entering into Jannah. That's the value he is teaching in Medina. Look what we are taught. It's okay to lead them, to effectively dump them somewhere. The next one, brothers, and this one, we all have this, yeah? Materialism. We live in this society, we're all in the rat race. I need a car. I need a house. I need the latest phone. The kids need the latest gadget. I don't know what it is now, your PlayStation, whatever, yeah? The Nintendo, whatever's come out, yeah? They need the latest gadgets. Oh, my car needs to be upgraded. Oh, my phone needs to be upgraded. The new Samsung something is out, as an example, or the iPhone is out. Oh, my house needs to be a bit bigger. You're constantly being pressured into these things. You're constantly being pressured into make it bigger, make it larger, make it more, make it more. It's not enough. The society tells you that you don't have enough. It's going to give you security. And when you meet people, even family, even it may be our own wives, children, who give you that feeling. When are we going on the next holiday? Look, the neighbors, they've been to Morocco. I ain't been nowhere. It's been 6 months. When are we going to Turkey? When are we going to here? And when are we going to there? Why? Because you're playing to the whole way the West works, which is you work throughout the whole year, you go on holiday at the end of the year. You work through the whole year, I need to change my car. I need to do this, I need to do that. How does the Rasul teach us to live? What is our attitude to this dunya? How should we live in this dunya? The famous hadith where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharib aw abiru sabil." Be, kun is imperative here. Be in this world like one of two, a stranger or a traveler who's passing through. You know, we all travel, yeah? When you travel, people say to travel light. Hey, don't take too much luggage, it's hassle. Yeah? That's the way we should be living in the dunya. We travel light, i.e., we don't have much possessions. Rasul could have, he was himself given an option by Allah to be either a prophet king, like Sulaiman alayhi salam, or to be as he was, and he picked the latter. He picked to stay as he was. To the extent that Aisha would say, radiallahu anha, that we did not know where our next meal was coming from. And in the Prophet's house, we would not eat meat for a month, maybe. You know, we Bengalis, yeah, we all like our red meat, yeah? In Rasul's house, you don't eat meat for a month, maybe, would go. The only thing left is the oil that burns the lantern. The olive oil that he would burn the lantern. That's the attitude we live with. But we are taught here how to live. Acquire wealth, amass wealth. Make sure you have all the things. Make sure you're competing. So when people sit down, they're all competing with each other about what? I did this, you know, my house is this big, my car is this expensive, my watch is this, and my that is that. Now don't misunderstand me, brothers. I am not saying you should live like a hermit or, you know, have no possession. I am saying that we should not be involved in the rat race. We should not be competing in these things. Our competition is in the good deeds. Our competition is in, okay, how much Quran have I memorized? Okay. Did I pray tahajjud? How many? So did I pray 2 rak'ah, 4 rak'ah, as an example? Did I teach my child a surah maybe? Did I memorize a surah or a hadith, as an example? How many? So I know one brother, he memorizes one verse every day. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you add up the days, that's 365 days, 260 days, let's say, in the year. 360 verses he memorizes in the year. Alhamdulillah, that's a good thing. Let's memorize a bit more. But we should not be involved in that rat race. The other thing you find in this society is how they treat foreigners. So, you know, in the news, there's a lot of talk about this Rwanda bill, isn't it? Yeah? And if they come on this poll, we're going to chuck them out and we're going to take them to Rwanda and etc., etc. We don't have enough in this society. Why should we give it to the foreigner? How did Rasulullah and the Ansar in particular treat the Muhajirun when they came to Medina? When the Hijrah was made, The Muhajirun, when they came, they had nothing, brothers. They literally had nothing. They turned up. And this isn't one person, two person. This is hundreds and hundreds of people from one city effectively into a small village, what we would categorize as a small village now. 40, 50 houses maybe Medina was. When they, what did Rasulullah do? He paired them up. He put the Muhajir with an Ansar. And he said, look, share with your brother. Treat him like your own. Now you have to imagine, this isn't like my cousin coming from abroad who I know, yeah? This is one stranger coming into the house of another stranger who you've probably never met. They've never met each other. But Rasulullah makes them brothers to the extent, the famous example where Abdurrahman ibn Auf and his companion, his Ansari, who was with him, said what to Abdurrahman ibn Auf? Abdurrahman, you can have half my wealth. And I have 2 wives, which one do you like? I'll divorce one and you can marry one. You can take her. And I have property, we'll split that as well. Look how he's treating his brother. He says to him, half my wealth, one of the wives, and property. There are going to be some issues with some feminists sharing out the wives. That's the attitude. Abdurrahman says, no, it's fine. Keep your wife, keep your house, and keep your wealth. Tell me what the market is. And he goes to Mecca, he goes to a market and he starts making money. The point is, look at the attitude that he had. It wasn't you're taking from me, you're stealing from me, you're taking my resources, etc., etc., etc. That is what they teach you. They teach you that somebody else is taking from you. Rather, our attitude is no, we give willingly. We hear about the stories of the companions where they give willingly to the Prophet ﷺ, to the extent that Abu Bakr at one point gives everything. Rasulullah asking, what do you have left? He said, I have Allah and His Messenger. That's it. And Rasulullah says, okay. He can live like that. We are not a people of we want to keep. We are a people of we wish to give to people. We have blessings we wish to share with somebody else. And last one, brothers, and this one maybe we don't see here as much, but if you look globally, you will see it prevalent amongst the Muslim world. Lack of security. And everyone knows what's happening in Gaza. I don't need to repeat what's happening in Gaza, but Gaza is not the only place. May Allah protect the Muslims of Gaza. You can talk about the Rohingya and what happened to them. Their situation isn't finished. They're still refugees between Bangladesh and Myanmar, as an example. You can talk about what's happened to the Muslims in Syria. Their situation isn't finished. Assad was bombing them today, as an example. It doesn't make the news anymore. The Libyan situation hasn't finished. Doesn't make the news anymore. These are places that have gone quiet. Sudan is not finished. Anyone who's following the news will see that Sudan has completely been destroyed, as an example. If you look at any place in the world on a map where there are some Muslims, you do not feel they are secure. We feel secure here. I don't want to think it, but we do feel secure here. That is a reality. We're not worried about someone's going to come and knock down your door and take everything and kill you, and etc., etc. That is not the type of fear we have here. However, in the Muslim countries, you have that. In the same way, the Prophet ﷺ in Mecca, he had that. So when he's in Mecca, he had no protection. He was tortured. The companions were tortured to the extent Rasulullah would have to stand there and give confidence to the companions. Hold on to Islam. Don't give in to Abu Jahl and Quraysh and co. Otherwise, you will lose out. Allah will give you Jannah, etc., etc. Rasulullah moves to Medina, becomes the head of state. What happens now? Now he has means to defend himself. He has means to defend the Muslims. And you have Badr. Not only does he have means to defend, he has the means to go on the offensive as well. So now it's no longer I can protect myself and the Muslims. I can take my message to the rest of the world. That's the difference between Mecca and Medina. Mecca, he couldn't even protect himself. Medina, he can not only protect, he can carry the message to the rest of the world. Now you may be thinking, what has all of that got to do with us fixing ourselves? Why is he mentioning all of these things got to do with fixing ourselves? Because we live, as remember I said at the beginning, we live in this environment and it affects us whether we like it or not. And if we think fixing ourselves is just praying salah, we've got the wrong end of the stick. That is not what Islam teaches us when it talks about fixing yourself. On the contrary, the way we fix ourselves in Islam is we live in a society in accordance with our values and our rules. and our rules. And by doing that, you will find that actually it naturally sorts you out. And anybody who's traveled to the Muslim world, they always tell you they prefer in the Muslim world, even though it's got its problems in here. Why? Because you don't have to worry about stuff like Salah. I don't have to look at the time and say Salah time to say the azan, because it goes off everywhere, as an example. Even though we don't have the rules of Islam in the Muslim world, people still, generally speaking, actually cover up. Women cover up. I was in Bangladesh in December. Yeah, there was no billboards trying to sell me an iPhone. They ain't got that there, yeah? It doesn't play to those norms of yours. There was no issue about intermingling with the sexes. The women kept themselves to themselves, and the men kept themselves to themselves. The women covered appropriately, as should be, as do the men. Covering isn't just for the women, it's also for the men. The men behaved in that particular way. There were certain cultural norms that came from Islam. So as an example, men sit in one place, women sit in one place. There's no mixing. Those things still exist, so people find it a lot easier. Why? It fits your natural values. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about someone teaching your child inappropriate things, as an example. Those things don't exist. It's getting there. In some of the Muslim countries, it's further ahead than others. But in a lot of our countries, this stuff doesn't exist. That's why you always find brothers talking about, man, I don't think it's appropriate to raise my kids here. Why? Because it affects their nafs, affects their character. Even the Islamic guy, he's having problems with trying to deal with his child, as an example. The other thing you don't get a clash. You see here, when you're living here and you're trying to go through the angle of, I want to fix myself, you're constantly rubbing up, you're constantly clashing with the values of the society and what people want to do. And it's not natural for a human being to live in conflict all his life. At some point, everyone gives in. Because it's not normal. How often are you going to fight? How often are you going to keep it up? For some 13 years, and then he moved to Medina. At some point, if you go for decades and decades, people just think, oh, you know what, man, I can't do it anymore, man. It's, all the brothers that are married, I'm talking about when you get home and the wife smacks you, yeah? I want this, and you say, no, let him mention, man, just give it to her so she can be quiet. Imagine the society at work, at large, like that, all the time. What success have you got in fixing yourself? What success have you got in making sure that, yes, I can actually live according to Islam? What happens is it ebbs away. It works on you because they ain't got nowhere else to go. So what should we do? Yeah, inshallah, I will end in about 5 minutes. What should we do? Firstly, brothers, we need to be aware of the things, especially when we're living here, of the things that affect us even unconsciously. We need to be aware of those types of things. We need to make sure, hold on a second, am I putting my guard down? That's the first thing. We need to be ourselves aware. We need to make our children aware. 1. 2, the other thing is we need to appreciate that in order for us to live according to the values of Islam, it has to be in our own society. It has to be based on the rules of Islam. That will naturally, you will see, it will produce the best character of you. It will produce the best person of you, which is in line with what Islam wants. And thirdly, brothers, we need to make sure we teach it to our children. And, we've come to a culture in the society where we like to sublet everything out to somebody. The cleaning somebody does, the dry cleaning somebody does, the hoovering somebody does, the car mechanic, everything we sublet. You cannot sublet raising your children. The Maulana isn't going to do it for you. That's not his job. We are the parents. We have to raise our children, which means that we need to know and we need to make sure we keep them with us and we give them the right culture. If we're not doing that, thinking somebody else will do it, we've failed already. And lastly, brothers, when it comes to fixing yourself, there's no end. Doesn't end, yeah? So there is no rank, you've reached it. There's no such thing. There is always room for improvement. The famous example, and this is where I'll end, inshallah, on the story of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, radiallahu anhu. He lives to a very old age. And when he's passing away, when you're passing away, you sometimes go through consciousness and you become unconscious and consciousness. And that's happening to him while his son is present. So his son Abdullah is present. And his father keeps saying, when he's unconscious, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet, and shaking his head. And he does that a couple of times. And then when his father gains consciousness, Abdullah asks his father, Dad, I hear you keep saying, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. Are you do you not want to die? Do you not want to meet your Lord? Why do you keep doing that? To which he said, no, Shaitan comes to me when I'm unconscious, and he sits next to me, and he says to me, oh, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, you're the one that got away from me. I couldn't get you. And Ahmad ibn Hanbal replies, not yet, not yet, not yet. I haven't died yet. You can still get me now. Not yet. This is how aware he is, not yet. I haven't died yet. Until I've died, I've gotten away from you, because you can't tempt me anymore. We also have that with Imam Qurtubi radiallahu anhu, where he has the same thing, but in his moment when he's passing, he doesn't say not yet. He says no, and then he says La ilaha illallah. To which, again, the person present says to him, why are you doing that for? What's happened? He says, Shaitan came to me. Two of them. One of them said, become a Jew, and another one said, become Christian. And I went, no, la ilaha illallah. So, improvement, brothers, is always up until we have died. But if you sincerely want to improve, it is hard to do in a society you're constantly conflicting, you're constantly at odds with. It has to be done, and this is how the Prophet did it. He did it in a society where he was in charge of the rules, he was in charge of the values, he was the head of state, and in that society, whether you liked it or not, and that's why you got the munafiqun, you had to follow him. Which means what? That if it's according to our values, then we don't have to worry about something outside happening, because why? The whole environment is set according to how we want it, and set in line with our Islam. It's the opposite. Those who wish were the enemies of Islam or who have disease in their heart, they have to worry, because it's not in line with them. And that's the way it actually should be. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ teaches us. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور